Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, welcome to the video. Today we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII, particularly the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played the remake a couple weeks ago, and I am excited to say that it is amazing. It exceeded all of my expectations. Those of you guys who follow this channel will know that I really do not like Final Fantasy 15. I felt that it was a horrendous game and the combat was boring. So when I saw that Final Fantasy VII was going to also move away from the turn-based attacking system to a more action-style combat system, I was really worried because I kind of felt that they'd use a similar combat system that they used in Final Fantasy 15. After playing the demo, I can assure you that the combat system is completely different and is amazing. So you listen to me talk here, and I'm saying a lot of things that I like about the game. I'm saying that I love the combat. I'm saying that I played the game, the demo, an hour-long demo, about 4 or 5 times. So why am I worried that the full game might not be good? And there are a couple reasons for that. So there's going to be kind of like 2 camps of people that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And it's going to be those people who actually played Final Fantasy VII. There's going to be the people who played it back in the late 90s whenever the game came out. The people who experienced how transformative the game was in that moment of time. There's going to be everyone else. So the people who actually played Final Fantasy VII back in the late 90s, one reason why I feel that they're not going to like this game is because the bar is going to be too high. Final Fantasy VII changed gaming. It was a transformative game. Like a lot of the things in that game was, it was the first of its kind. It's like whenever you really started moving away from these 2D platform games and you have a 3D experience. The storytelling was phenomenal. Like my older brother, who was a tough guy, who's a Marine now, but back in the day, when he was in high school, was brought to tears because of this game, because it was so great. So and a lot of people consider Final Fantasy VII to be the best game ever made, right? So you have those groups of people who experienced Final Fantasy VII at that moment in time, they're gonna want to feel that way again. So in their eyes, the only way Final Fantasy VII can be a success if it's the best game ever made. And that's kind of a high bar. So let's talk about everyone else. So everyone else, me included. I never played Final Fantasy VII. I watched my older brother play Final Fantasy VII, and I only have inklings of the storyline. I don't really understand what was going on. I just remember, the cool Final Fantasy VII noises and sounds, and that he said it was the best game ever. So of course, as a small child, I agreed with what my older brother said and thought that it had to be the best game ever. I actually tried to play Final Fantasy VII a couple years ago. It's because everyone says, it's one of the best games ever made. And I love games. I play a lot of video games, and I wanted to experience, the best game ever made. But for me, when I tried to experience it, the graphics were just too bad. I know a lot of people would be like, oh, don't care about the graphics, and all that kind of things. But I feel like everyone has a different point. Everyone has a different standard, and sometimes when you go too far back, it's just not enjoyable. I just can't get past it. It's I love 80s and 70s movies, but if I go back to the 50s and 40s, the styling and the quality of the video is just something that prevents me from enjoying the game. And that's one of the reasons that the remake is here. It's going to take this amazing story and distill it into something that a more modern audience could love and appreciate. Because I can't appreciate the old Final Fantasy VII, because for me, it's just not a fun experience. It's just too old. And they're going to retell that story in a great way. So I think this group is going to be most of the people probably watching this video, because they've all heard the ravings about Final Fantasy VII. They may have tried to play it themselves and they said, this isn't for me, but this is going to be a great blockbuster game. I want in. And now I'm going to tell you about why, despite the demo being amazing, why I think this game has the potential to extremely disappoint people. One of the things that I feel might disappoint people about Final Fantasy VII is progression, right? The sphere grid is something that a lot of Final Fantasy players are familiar with. You know, I think it appeared in every Final Fantasy post Final Fantasy X, and that is absent in Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and the original one, of course, as well. And the reason that I think that this is going to be somewhat disappointing, because based on what I've seen in the demo, where we level up, we have no control. We might not have a way to control the development of each of our characters. It's going to be kind of one of those things that, kind of like in Pokemon, where, you know, you level up and your character attributes like just go up. There's like a little formula. You moved up, and you get stronger. The reason why I'm worried about that, one of the things that have been prevalent in all the Final Fantasy games that I've played has been farming, right? It is necessary to farm and level up to beat different bosses. From what I've seen, the gameplay seems extremely linear. It doesn't really look like you're going to be able to, you know, farm per se and gain levels. So what I'm curious is, how are they going to make it? How are they going to make leveling up an enjoyable experience that you could end up personalizing, you know, your character's journey and their progression and their stats? You know, and that in and of itself isn't a bad thing. I know, if I remember correctly, with the old Final Fantasy VII games, there was, you know, individualization of your character in terms of what equipment you would gather. I also think there was some sort of AP thing going on. But I didn't see any of that in the demo, and it kind of just looks different. I mean, so it's like, how will they make progression worthwhile? You know, when you look at like a lot of the modern games, you know, that I love very much, you know, Shadow of Mordor, Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, these games have, you know, very flushed out and very, in my eyes, very entertaining progression. Something like this, where I feel like the gameplay, if it's like the demo, is going to be extremely linear, and that in and of itself isn't really a bad thing. I've just noticed it's something that I don't prefer. You know, there have been games out there where the gameplay has been linear, and, you know, they did offer a decent amount of character progression and character building and customization, but I just felt it was kind of like not great. Like, it was kind of limiting. And like, one of the games that come to mind is going to be, you know, Last of Us. But, you know, that's probably a poor example to use, because in Last of Us, I kind of feel the fact that you are so limited in, you know, how you could build your character is kind of indicative that you're in like this type of post-apocalyptic pandemic. So, like, you know, you have to make choices about, you know, how you're doing what you're doing. So I guess in that way, you know, that was immersion, but I just didn't like that. You know, I like games that are more like Horizon Zero Dawn or Shadow of Mordor, things like where you can extremely like customize your character. Even things like, you know, Devil May Cry, even like the newer version, like, you know, customize your character based on, you know, getting red orbs and unlocking new moves. It's just going to be interesting to me how they determine to make progression worthwhile in a system that it looks like farming really can't exist when you look at the demo itself. It's possible that the demo was just, you know, the equivalent of a dungeon, and the game might be more open. You know, I haven't really been reading up on Final Fantasy VII. I kind of want it to be kind of a surprise. But if they do that, you know, that would definitely be a way where I'm sure we'll get more types of, you know, build customization with our characters. There's definitely going to be things like different weapons and equipment, and we know this based on during the tutorials. It tells you that, you know, your special abilities are often derived off whatever weapon that you're using, and I think that that's pretty much indicative that there are going to be different types and multiple weapons. Another reason I think people have something to be worried about with Final Fantasy VII, the remake, is that the game's been split up into 3 parts. And there are multiple reasons why I feel this is concerning. It's just splitting up into multiple parts. It's because Final Fantasy games, another thing that they have in common with each other is that they're all extremely long. They're all really long games. Even though I didn't like Final Fantasy 15, I still put like 150 hours into it. And you can say like, how could you not like a game and put 150 hours into it? But I think it's because, I just have so much respect for the series that I just wanted to do everything to make sure that I was giving it a fair shot. Like, I just kept on playing it, hoping it would eventually get good. And, for me, it just didn't. So the games have all been like extremely long. So you have this game that's now cut up into 3 parts. Like, is it going to be like a 10-hour Final Fantasy experience? Again, maybe there's information out there about it. But one of my big things with games is that they should be like complete experiences, right? I don't like whenever games feel like something's been cut out of it so they could, remake it into something new. For example, like when you look at the new Deus Ex game, Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Human Revolution was a great game. It was a phenomenal game. And Mankind Divided just felt like things were missing. It just felt like they could have created a full experience, but they was leaving stuff for the sequel. So it's going to be interesting for me how Square Enix is able to make a complete story that feels like fulfilling out of a third. And that's another reason why I think that it's going to upset the people who have played Final Fantasy VII in the past. Because in order to do that, they're going to have to make a lot of changes. A lot of people, don't like change. And in order to make the game a complete experience, in my view, you're going to have to add a lot to it. You're going to have to add a lot of stuff that wasn't there. And that's going to accept some people. So moving on from there, another reason that I feel that Final Fantasy VII is going to disappoint a lot of people is that I think Square Enix really hasn't done a good job lately making good games. I'm sure the internet would tell me if I'm wrong here, but for me, like, Square Enix has just been dropping the ball time after time after time, especially on their Final Fantasy games. Like, the last good Final Fantasy game, in my opinion, was Final Fantasy X. That was the last one that was like amazing. The story in 13 was terrible. It was terrible. You got through it, and it was it was fun enough, but it just wasn't great. You look at other games like Murdered Soul Suspect. It's like Square Enix, I kind of feel, has been living off like their reputation recently, like their old reputation. It's like, what's the last video game that Square Enix made that was like exceptional? You do have Kingdom Hearts. The newest one wasn't great. I played the original. I played the first 2 Kingdom Hearts games. I thought they were pretty fun. I was pretty young and pretty stupid, so I'm not sure what older me would think. But a lot of the stuff I've been hearing about the latest one, it's kind of not giving me an incentive to buy it. Like, there's not a lot of reasons that I feel like, oh yeah, like I have to buy this. And I just feel like Square Enix just hasn't really brought the heat. So how are they going to do it now? That all being said, about those reasons that I think Final Fantasy VII might disappoint us, I think there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. As I said before, I played the demo about 4 or 5 times, and it was a ton of fun. There are a lot of signs in there that this was going to be an exceptional game. So now that I've kind of, gave a couple reasons why I think you should be worried about Final Fantasy VII, the remake, I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why I think you should be pretty excited about it. As I said at the beginning of this video, I played the demo about 4 or 5 times, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. And I think, what makes a game great is whenever the small things are taken care of, because those small things make a huge difference. So, to me, gameplay comes down to a lot with combat. And combat in Final Fantasy VII, the remake, from what I've saw, was very exciting. It has to be if you're able to replay the same thing, 4 or 5 times and still have a ton of fun. When I was trying to figure out what combat would look like in Final Fantasy VII, the remake, I kind of had to naturally look back on what they did for Final Fantasy 15. You know, Final Fantasy 15, the combat was a mess. I didn't really think there was a lot of benefit into switching between character to character within the combat. And I didn't think there was a lot of benefit. You know, I mean, yeah, sometimes, you know, a javelin might be better than like a dagger or something like that. But I really didn't feel it made a tangible difference. Your party makeup or who you're fighting as, it made a tangible difference on combat. A lot of times with Final Fantasy 15, like, combat was just like a mess. Like, there's all this stuff going on. You hold down to attack, you press O to dodge. Like, there wasn't any like really thought into it. It was a completely, you know, casual experience. But in Final Fantasy 7, combat's a little more, you know, fleshed out. So the combat in Final Fantasy 7, it isn't very complex. You know, it's not going to be like a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry or anything like that. But I don't think it has to be in order to be fun. What we see in the gameplay is that, you know, at least Cloud, you know, has different types of combat modes. One where he attacks a little faster, and one where he attacks a bit slower. You know, these combat modes have, you know, trade-offs, positives and negatives. I found in that one quick 1 hour demo, you know, what stance I was in with Cloud made a tangible difference in the combat. There were certain combat situations I was in where I was like, this is definitely, you know, the move to make. And there's also the introduction of using magic and the abilities. Those were done in such a tasteful and fulfilling way. And like, if you're familiar with that one scene from the demo, whenever Tifa was like, you know, there's some place a sword just can't reach, and you know, you had Garrett come in, and with Garrett you're able to hit targets or hit enemies that Cloud just can't quite get to. And I kind of feel, you know, that's combat done right. Whenever your party makeup makes a humongous difference in the gameplay and what you could do. Like in Final Fantasy X or a lot of good Final Fantasies, like who you have in your party in a certain fight is extremely important. And I felt that was something that was completely absent in Final Fantasy 15. Like, I mean, it just, who you were fighting as, to me, just really didn't make that big of a difference in the combat. Another good reason that, another good thing about combat is that I like the new system that they use, the MP system. I like, you know, a lot of times when you look at, you know, Final Fantasies and whatnot in the past, one thing that people always do in order to get past tough spaces was to just down a bunch of potions. You know, and this is something that I've even done. You know, you just force it through a bunch of potions, and, you know, that will get you through it. Making it such that you have to build up that bar before you actually use a potion, I think makes combat a lot better. It makes sure that you have to be thoughtful about who's going to be taking the damage, who's going to be using what abilities. Like, you just can't potion your way out of situations. And, you know, that's something that I was extremely excited to see. I was also extremely excited to see that your abilities can change based off the weapons that you've had. You know, I did kind of say previously in this video that I was extremely concerned about how progression would look like and how you would be able, you know, to customize your player experience. By having different weapons, I mean, you could approach different fighting situations, you know, extremely differently. And I think that was, you know, depending on the amount of weapons that are out there, that could be something where you can actually like put your own spin, you know, on combat and whatnot. And one thing I'm really interested to see what happens is how they build on magic. You know, how are we gonna get new spells? Like, are there going to be new spells? And the way that magic is incorporated inside of the combat, using like the MP system, I think is just, you know, done phenomenally well. It's not jarring where they completely take you out of the combat in order to use your magic. It just kind of slows down combat a little bit in order for you to, you know, make your selection. So like you're still immersed in the fight. And I liked that's what they did. So all in all, I think Final Fantasy VII is a game, the remake at least, is a game that I'm really excited about, and I really can't wait to see. I'm counting the days until April 10th. I was just posting this video. I wanted to get something out, kind of wanted to prime the pump, start posting regularly. And I just kind of felt this is something, these are just my initial thoughts on the game that I wanted to share with my loyal 166 followers. I'm sure there might be information out there that may address some of these issues. Perhaps there is, perhaps there isn't. I've kind of tried to stay away from the most part with all the news because, you know, I really love, you know, Final Fantasy games. You know, I've really loved, you know, 9, 10, you know, those, I mean, amazing experiences. And I feel like if I hype my expectations up way too much, you know, there's going to be no way on earth I'm going to enjoy the game. So I'm trying to stay away from as much Final Fantasy news as possible. Like, the news that I've conveyed to you is things that I've just kind of heard in through osmosis in the grapevine. So, excited for April 10th. Hopefully, I'm wrong, and this is, again, going to be the best game ever made, just like the original. So thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked the video, give it a thumbs down. Tell me why in the comments. So, I mean, also, what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy 7 the Remake? Do you think it's going to be good? Do you think it's going to be bad? Let me know. Let's have a conversation. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.